Well, hello everybody, this is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to your critique of... Wow, that's loud. I wonder why that's so loud. Usually I have trouble getting my mic hot enough. That's strange. Everything's the same as normal. Anyway, sorry for breaking your eardrums, but this is Critique of the Week for Friday, December 23rd, the eve of Christmas Eve, the day where Ra fights back Seth and finally restores light to the darkening world. Just when we think it's just going to keep getting darker and darker forever, today is the first day that's a little longer, a little brighter. And I hope you have a good one out there. We have a fun Critique of the Week show for you today. Wow, this mic is so hot, and I have not... Why is that? I'm sorry. Okay, is that better? Okay. That is strange. Because nothing has changed from last time. It was not too loud for you. Okay, good. Thanks, Dick. Anyway, yeah, today is the Critique of the Week. We have a special show for everybody today. We are going to be doing a lightning round. So if you have anybody watching, only for people who are watching right now, feel free to share any poems that you'd like. How to do that was just email it like you would on the open lines to open mic, that's openmic@rattle.com. Put in the subject line, Critique of the Week or prompt or something like that for critique, just so I know that it's a poem that you mean to be used in that way. And and then we'll get to as many as we can. Can't promise we'll get to everybody. I think we've never got to anybody. So Clayton Clark says it was too loud there. Yeah, I mean, I have a decibel thing, and it was we were really into the hot end of the mic. We were in the red. I maxed it out. And that's weird because usually I'm like turning, other people down to match my low, which I never figured out. But anyway, so we're going to do a lightning round. So send your poems in to open mic, that's openmic@rattle.com. Later on a little bit, we'll start going through those poems and just give some quick critiques and see if you have any, especially if you have any specific questions, like if there's a poem that you're stuck on, having trouble trying to figure out what to do with a certain part, the end's not working, the beginning's not working, you have a specific question, feel free to send the poem right now, or just ask general questions about line breaks, things like that. Any questions that you might have about poems, or if there's just a poem you're struggling with, or you think is like close but not quite, anything like that, send it in. We'll get to as many as we can. I'll go a little bit over time. We do never get where we haven't yet gotten to all the poems that people have sent, but on one of these. But it's always a lot of fun to look at poems quickly. We're gonna do something else though, that's even more fun, perhaps. Well, no, nothing's more fun than that. But we're going to be looking at a pair of poems. We're going to look at a Marie Howe poem and a Billy Collins poem. And, still distorted. Okay, yeah, so the mic's still hot. Yeah, so I turned it way down. I don't know why. I mean, nothing changed. Nothing even upgraded. But it's turned down now. Yeah, that's the thing. I used to... Thanks, Dick. Yeah, Dick says check the volume in the back of the mic. I turned it way up because at some point, it started being quiet and I couldn't figure out how to get it louder, so I turned it to the max. But anyway, it should be good now because I've turned it down over here in my software. And actually, I like it hotter because then you can turn it up or turn it down based on how you want. I would like it like that to be able to adjust more and not have it be maxed. But anyway, let's see who's here. We got Tom Barlow, we got James Langford, Cindy Gore's here, D. Coleman, Nate Jacob, Clayton Clark, Dick Westheimer, who we already talked about. Good to see you all over on Facebook. We've got Katie Dozier. We've got Jenny Middleton, Andrea DeBrica, Sharon Ferrante's here. Sarah Horn's here. Nate Jacob doing double duty like he likes to do. Joe Barca, City Putnam Guntherman. Hello. Hi, friends, says Katie. Hello to all our friends out there. Okay, so I was going to look at this. Let's see. I have this really cool book that I got as an undergraduate. It's called Black Lightning. Poetry in Progress. And I liked it so much that after, I can't remember how I got a copy. It's out of print now. But it's these essays, and I don't have my mics or my camera set up, but they're essays about poems in progress. So it shows different drafts of different poets. And I thought I would do one of these and go over one of the poems. But reading this back again, they're all so long. They're more like essays. They go on and on. They're longer poems. And so I don't think that's going to work. But in looking for that, but do maybe check out Black Lightning. Maybe sometime I'll have to read through and actually find highlights maybe to talk about from this. But I think it's a cool book. It's by Eileen Tabios, and you can't really check it out. It's out of print, but it's a pretty cool book. In my searches though, I did find. So I was looking around to see if there's anything else, and there's a new book that I want to get. I lost the link. Poems in Progress. Here it is. I'll put this up on the screen. Poems in Progress, drafts from master poets. So I think I might get a copy of this book and then look at some of these too, because it seems really fun. It's really fun looking at drafts. But in the process of doing that, I found, no, I'm not going to take part in your survey. I found this really cool New York Times article. And this is from August 1st, 2017. Maybe some people have already seen this. But here we go. This is from the New York Times. Like I said, August 1st, 2017. 6 contemporary poets share the process behind their poems. And so we have 6 poets, like they say. And for example, the first poet here is Eduardo Corral. And then here's a poem by Billy Collins. So let's take a look at this poem by Billy Collins. I wonder if I can get it bigger, though. Let's see. Oh, it's kind of blurry on your screen, huh? Well, we will. Yeah, because see, New York Times. Originally, I had a when I went there, it worked for it worked for like I had like one free article left, and now apparently that uses my one free article. So I had to go somewhere else, and now the pictures aren't as big, but still, we can get a look at this poem. So this is it. This is let's get rid of this too. This is Duck Blind by Billy Collins. And he will read how this is the original draft of it. Duck Blind. Oh, I wish I could have a better. Let me see if Give me 1 second, because I want to be able to read this. And the archive, I had to go to an archived version. But maybe I can do a get this another way. Because I do want it to be able to be legible, because that's part of the question. But I can't subscribe right now. All right, well, that didn't work either. So you'll have to look at this. That's too bad. Because it worked this morning, but I had to reset my computer. And now I'm out of articles. But we'll just do it like this anyway. This is what Billy Collins says. So the pictures aren't as clear as I would hoped. But this is what Billy Collins says about this poem, Duck Blind. Okay, so let's take a look. And I think I saved a better picture of Marie House. So I think that'll work fine. But I didn't for Billy. But here's Duck Blind. And this is what Billy says about it. No, this is too big. Yeah, this really messed me up having having it not be actually. But here's what Billy says: Duck Blind, and you can't even. I'll just read it. I wrote the first draft of Duck Blind on the Amtrak train that runs along the Hudson River from Albany to New York City after spotting, a duck blind by the low water at the edge of the river. In writing it, I was nudged along by a Kay Ryan poem called Dogleg, but it would be hard for me to say just how. And so that's Billy Collins, and then here's the poem Duck Blind, which I can read, but it might be a little blurry on your screen. I'm sorry for that. Here's Duck Blind, though. The idea behind a duck blind is that any duck who... Maybe I can't read it. Okay, we'll do the Marie Howe poem instead. This is too bad. I'm sorry. But I know I have the Marie Howe poem. So here's Marie Howe poem. This is what Marie Howe says about her poem. We're going to look at... We're going to look at this poem. This is The Map by Marie Howe. She says, a poem has its own body. It comes into the world, and I feel almost often like a midwife. And a poem has an unsayable center around which its body grows. The first draft had 1 or 2 or 3 things going on, too talky, but hadn't found its organic heart, its unsayable necessity. A friend suggested starting with a statement, the failure of love. Then the map appeared, and in the space between the two, the statement and the experience, the poem happened. So here is Marie Howe's poem, Duck Blind. And I did, because it's a bigger, I saved the actual picture. If anybody wants to go, and while you're here, and just go to this article if you have a New York Times subscription, and right-click on the picture for Billy Collins' poem, Duck Blind, and then email me the actual link to the actual photo. Then we can do it this way, which is much better. and we could actually see the poem. We could talk about Billy's too, but we will talk about Marie Howe's. So here's Marie Howe's poem, "The Map," which is from her book Magdalene, which is a beautiful book. I had a review copy on my desk for so long, just kind of like right there, because it was such a pretty, such a beautifully made book. And here is The Map, and we'll zoom in a little bit on this too. So this is the first draft of the map, and see, she's got number 1, map, Howe. That's what, or Marie Howe. This is the first version. "I was looking through the transparent map backwards and finally understood that when she saw to the left of her, India or China, I saw to the right. And might the life I've already lived be seen like that? If the pain I've caused others could be revealed to me, if I might see the effect as the sun rises so many times in New York City this morning. The leaves on the tree 5 flights up, illuminated by the reflection of that sun. Off the shiny skyscraper blocks away, the light no less lovely refracted, bounced off, arriving at the leaves and into my eyes, a few inches inside the 5th-story window where I'm sitting. The failure of love might count for most of the suffering in the world. This tree is actually a weed, someone told me, growing up from a crack in the cement, a towering weed with bark and branches, something that might have been cut down, but wasn't, and so I can watch the light the underside as the sky grows from dark to dim gray and blue, brightening. And so that was the first draft, and you can see it's really interesting when you see the later version of this, because you can see the way that, we talk about like sloppy first drafts and how you should just get as much content out as possible in the first draft. That's really typical literary advice. And you can see what she does with this, because this poem ends up becoming so short. So it starts, "I was looking through the transparent map backwards and finally understood," right? And then it goes on, "And what she saw to the left of her, India or China, I saw to the right, and might the life I've already lived be seen like that." And then if you look at her next draft, this is draft number 2. I guess I got to scroll this way. This is draft number 2. And she takes, see, number 2, it cuts all the way to this. So we cut out most of the poem from the first draft. We started... here is, "I was looking through the transparent map backwards," and then she circled this line, which I guess she says in the notes, "A friend suggested moving up. The failure of love might count for most of the suffering in the world." And then she turns that to the first line. Wait. There we go. Let's turn it to the first line. This is draft number 2. "I was looking through the transparent map backward. The girl was going over her global studies homework in the air, touching the Gobi Desert, the plateau of Tiber in front of her, where she saw the map. And I did suddenly see how her left is my right, and for a moment I understood." So that is like a second type draft. Then she goes down to this, and she moves to... I got too many things to shift. Here we go. She moves that first line, that line that we saw before, which was "the failure of love might count for most of the suffering in the world." She moves that to the front of the poem, and now it becomes "the map. The failure of love might count for most of the suffering in the world. I was looking through the transparent map backwards. The girl was going over her global studies homework in the air, touching the Gobi Desert, the plateau of Tiber in front of her, where she saw the map, and I did suddenly see how her left is my right, and for a moment I understood." So this entire thing that she had a page and a half. I mean, there it is double spaced. But she had a page and a half of stuff that she mostly just cut. I might see the effect of the sun. This whole thing, the sun rises so many times in New York City this morning. The leaves in the trees, 5 flights up, illuminated. The whole thing about that, the branch, the underside of the leaves, then it's not a tree, it's a weed. That whole thing is just gone. So there's so much content that she cut, which is just fascinating to me. And she ends up with this poem. And then she's still playing with it. So this is draft number 4, I guess, or 4 we're on. And then she goes like this. "The failure of love might account for most of the suffering in the world. The girl was going over her global studies homework." And here she shifts the stanza break and sort of spreads it out. You can see how there's less, the lines are shorter here, even though the content's the same. The failure of love might account for most of the suffering in the world. The girl was going over her global studies homework, drawing the map with her finger in the air, touching the Gobi Desert, the plateau of Tiber in front of her. And looking through her transparent map backwards, I did suddenly see how her left is my right, and for a moment I understood. And then all she does, you can see what she's going to do, is move this part up here. So the girl was going over her global studies homework. She moves in the air up here instead of after drawing the map with her fingers in the air. In the air, drawing the map with her finger. So she moves this up and she indents this for some reason. I guess for the airy feel or something, who knows what. But this is the final version of the poem. The map. The failure of love might account for most of the suffering in the world. The girl was going over her global studies homework in the air where she drew the map with her finger, touching the Gobi Desert, the plateau of Tiber in front of her, and looking through her transparent map backwards, I did suddenly see how her left is my right, and for a moment I understood. And so it was just fascinating to me to see this and how all the content was cut down. And it was good stuff, too. I mean, there's that saying, kill your darlings. There's a lot of content on here that was really good. I like this. This tree is actually a weed, someone told me, growing up from a crack in the cement, a towering weed with the bark and branches. And that's all gone. It becomes just the heart of this poem, this little nugget. And then here is her actual poem map as it appears in poets.org and her book, Magdalene. And here we go. So the map. The failure of love might account for most of the suffering in the world. The girl was going over her global studies homework in the air, and they don't even indent. Oh, I guess this is the final draft. That's interesting. So this is the final draft from the book, and it's a little bit different too. I guess this is interesting. I didn't even notice this. So this was the draft 5 that they published on Poem a Day, and then she edited afterward for the book. That's what happened. So so you see her. With the in the air is up here, is down here now. That's very interesting. But so it's really interesting to watch poems in progress like that. I'm really looking forward to seeing that other book, Poetry in Progress. Did anybody send? Yeah. So thanks, Dick. Okay. So here is. Oh, that was wrong. Here's Katie said too. This is Duck Blind, and now we can see the actual poem. So let's do this again. And this is the original draft of Billy Collins' Duck Blind. Let's take a look really quick at what he did. But I did want to say one thing we never did for the critique week. We don't do much is think about moving, shifting whole sections of the poem around as much. That's one of the things maybe we should keep an eye out for more, because I do think that beginning to Marie Howe's poem is probably better than it was originally. And so that's another thing to keep an eye on as we go through critiques. Here is Duck Blind. Duck Blind. And now we can actually see it. So thanks to Katie and Dick and everybody else who sent in copies. Duck Blind. Here's the original draft. I'll read it like it was, and then we'll talk about his little changes and why he might have made them. Duck Blind. The idea behind a duck blind is that any duck who flies over it will be blind to its existence, seeing or not seeing in the case of a duck how well the blind was camouflaged with branches and leaves to fit in with its natural surroundings. Being blind to the blind, a duck has a better shot of being shot and tumbling down from the sky, wing over useless wing, and landing softly in the reeds of marsh, a clump of plumage now, blind to everything and deaf to the barking of the wet dogs, to more gunfire later in the morning, and to the sound of the hunters talking quietly as they wait in the blind. So that was the original draft. You can see his notes on the poem, Duck Blind. This is his second draft. I don't know if he draws a picture of a duck there next to it. I'm not sure what that is. But the first edit here, the idea behind a duck blind is that any duck who flies over it, and it becomes flying along. So notice in that revision right there how he condensed the same exact content comes through, but instead of who flies over it, flying along is a much simpler, quicker way. So it's more condensed and gets the information out faster. It doesn't waste as much breath. As even though it's the same number of syllables, I think, who flies over it. I guess it's one less syllable, but it's a lot less time in saying. If you look at the the length of the poem of the sounds, so that condenses it and makes it feel smoother. So now the new version is the idea behind a duck blind is that any duck flying along will be blind, and then instead of to existence, he says to the blind. So he repeats the blind again in the new version. Seeing or not seeing in the case of a duck. How well the blind was camouflaged with branches and leaves. And he moves, let's see. So the copy I have again is a different version. It's very interesting. So I got a copy of the poem. Okay, so this is the poem how it was actually published too. We'll take a look at this. Right here. This is in the book, or from a PDF of the book. And you see some of the changes he didn't follow through with, actually. And he shifted it around a little bit more than he did on the poem. But we'll keep going through and we'll see. With the branches and leaves to fit in with its natural surroundings, being blind to, he switched to ignorant of the blind. A duck has a better shot of being shot than tumbling down from the sky. And so I think there's I don't know. I wonder if anybody has an idea as why then is better than and. It does feel better to me. And I think maybe with the ignorant of, it feels like the the blind to the blind is so much. It's like so much too much wordplay. Like it's too on the nose. It's too self-conscious, because he does say has a better shot of being shot. And I think maybe, being blind to the blind is a little too much of that. And he probably wanted to turn it down. And so he said ignorant of instead of blind to. So there's a better shot of being shot than tumbling down from the sky, wing over useless wing, and landing softly in the reeds of a marsh, a clump of plumage now. Blind to everything and deaf to. I think he was wondering if there's a comma here, if there should be a comma, and deaf to. And he does add a comma later in the poem. You'll see the final version. And that's a matter of a pause. I think that's one of those things where it's an option. Syntactically, grammatically, you could have a comma there or not. And he decided to, because he wanted to slow it down a little bit. To the barking of the wet dogs, to more gunfire later in the morning, and to the sound of the hunter talking quietly. He switches to softly, talking softly as they wait in the blind. And then interestingly, here's how it appears in the book, where he changed that completely. So you'll see how the ending is different. It's not even softly as they wait in the blind. There's another edit not included in the New York Times. So here we go with this version. Now here's this is the final version from the book. Duck blind. The idea behind a duck blind is that any duck flying over it will be blind to its existence, seeing or not seeing in the case of the duck how well the blind was camouflaged with branches and leaves to fit in with its natural surroundings. Ignorant of the blind, a duck has a better shot of being shot than tumbling out of the sky, wing over useless wing, only to land in the reeds of a marsh, a clump of plumage now, blind to everything and deaf to, so you have that comma there to slow it down, to the barking of the wet dogs, to more gunfire later in the morning, into the soft talk of the hunters, waiting there, concealed by the blind. And so you can see the difference in the ending. It's now and the soft talk. So he moved the hunter's talk up and ended on blind, whereas the original poem, or the talk is down here. So it's the soft talk of the hunters, waiting there, concealed by the blind, is where he went. And so that kind of slows the poem down too. So it feels like a lot of the edits he was making were slowing the poem down as it sort of eased into its ending. So anyway, I just thought it was very interesting to look at this stuff. I hope you guys found it interesting too. But that was from this really cool article from the New York Times, which I wish I could have. I wish I could show all of it, and it wasn't paywalled. But if you want to find it, it's Poetry in Action. Just type in New York Times Poetry in Action, and if you have a subscription, you can see, or you have articles left like I did earlier this morning, you can see 6 of these poems. So it's very fascinating to look at what they do. So hope that was useful. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, I think everyone's saying this is helpful. So you liked it, yeah? I think really want to look at that other book, wherever it went. That other book that just came out in September of this year, actually. So I'm gonna see if they'll send me a copy and we can consider it like promotion. Let's see. Dick Westheimer says it's interesting to me how many abstract words, existence, surroundings, and adverbs he allowed himself. Yeah, I mean, Billy allows himself a lot, and people. I think one of the things you get when you're Billy Collins is that people give you a lot of slack. Like they let you get away with stuff, and you can kind of, cruise through in a way that maybe other people might not. And it's kind of it turns it a little bit in an interesting way just to be Billy Collins. Yeah. But maybe that's a thing that makes Billy Collins really work too, because it doesn't sound poety in that way. It sounds much more casual, more interesting, more simple speech. Okay, let's see if anybody else has any comments before I move on. Okay. I'm just seeing if there's any other comments to work. And so Katie, interestingly, Katie Dozier says she would have preferred to leave the blind and the double. That's an interesting question there. We'll just look at this poem one more time. Because Billy cut the being blind to the blind and made that ignorant of. And it was definitely so it wouldn't be. It's sort of the poem makes the same move twice in a row. And that's kind of the problem. It really stands out as like, oh, I'm a poet playing with words. When you make the same, if you do one kind of move like that, you sort of stay in the thing where, oh, somebody could accidentally say that. But if you're doing the same move twice in a row, it makes it very aware, the reader very aware that you're writing a poem. And it sort of pulls out of the poem a little bit. And I think that was his impulse. So to cut one definitely seems the thing to do. And Katie likes the blind, being blind to the blind. A duck has a better shot of being shot. And so I think Katie was saying she would edit the second, better shot of being shot. I think the blind to the blind is too, I think that stands out more. And so it makes it a little more prominent. It has more of that distracting feel. I think because it's a more interesting thing, it becomes more of a distraction. Whereas instead of a better shot of being shot, and it, again, feels like it could be an accidental expression, like you didn't mean to do that repetition. It seems much more casual. But blind to the blind, because it's more prominent, I think seems more forced. And so makes it feel more like a poet telling you something instead of being lost in the space of the poem, which is what we try to do, really, is make people forget they're reading poems, even as we're hearing and experiencing intricate, interesting music. So I agree with Billy on that one. I think I agree with all these edits, actually. To the soft talk of the hunters waiting there, concealed by the blind. And I like his edit that's not even included in here. I like the final ending. So his poems do, they get gradually, there's very small changes, but I think they get better every time. And one of the things too I was going to point out that I forgot is in this last line, the sound of the hunters talking quietly or then talking softly as they wait in the blind. We get the sound and then we get the talking, so it's a repetition of the same thing. It's really redundant, to call up the sound of the hunters and then say they're talking quietly when you can just say they're talking softly or soft talk. And look at that too. So Dick mentioned that there were a lot more adverbs than you would expect or than you would be advised to in a poem, right? And so one other thing that's worth mentioning in this change to the ending is that he shifts it to soft talk. So he makes it a noun, the soft talk of the hunters, and it's not an adverb anymore. And instead of talking softly, it's the soft talk. That he's referring to the talk itself rather than the hunters here, which again makes it feel more concrete and gets rid of that adverb sort of thing that we try to avoid as poets because they're just not as strong. Adjectives and adverbs aren't as strong as nouns and verbs as far as evoking things in the mind. And so Billy did that here when he changed talking softly as they wait in the blind, to the talk soft of the hunters waiting there, concealed by the blind. So there you go. But that is Duck Blind. Let's move on, though, and let's do our lightning round of poems people would want to share. I got to drop off all the people. Thanks so much, though, for sending to everybody who sent. A whole bunch of you sent a screenshot of that. I really appreciate it. So we got to look at the thing before. Now let's take a look. We'll just go in order of people sent them in. Here's Sharon Ferrante. Sharon's always got the short poems, which are always fun. I'm going to, again, use the Telestrator and get to work on it. This is Sharon Ferrante's poem, The Battle. And away we go. Let's look at the battle. The battle. Make it a thought about how love fights its death. You open your sky, never knowing how long it will last. Your armor gets stripped away, all but the sword you swallow. Both fall to the ground, waiting to be lifted, like a sacred feather. The battle. So it's a very short poem, as Sharon poems always are, in abstract. Let's read it again, because it feels like a metaphor for something. The battle. Make it a thought about how love fights its death. You open your sky, never knowing how long it will last. So for this first section, I'm a little lost as to what, I don't know where to place this. The battle, like I don't know who's battling. I guess the you isn't clear, and so it's one of those things where, like, you can't really resolve an image in your mind, in your mind's eye, that like movie that plays in your brain, if you don't know who the subjects are. And so this, and you can play with that and make it be used in useful ways, but it makes it's harder to actually see the image of the poem and see what's going on when you can't actually see the people. And so I don't know who's fighting at this point, and so I don't get any image yet. I'm sort of like, you're sort of in a limbo where you can't generate the image yet because you're waiting to see who the subjects of the image are. So make it a thought about how love fights its death. You open your sky, never knowing how long it will last. And so I'm lost as to who the you is. Your armor gets stripped away, all but the sword you swallow. And so since we haven't had the image of the subject resolve yet, at this point I was wondering if it's like a sword swallower at a circus. Is it actually a battle? I mean, I'm still a little lost as to who's here. Both fall to the ground, waiting to be lifted like a sacred feather. I love the ending. It's a beautiful ending. Really wonderful last line. And then I go back from wondering who the sword swallower was, to realizing it's actually like knights battling on a field, I assume, and the armor is literal, which I wasn't sure if it was at first. Both fall to the ground, waiting to be lifted like a sacred feather. And that is a great image at the end. And it's a great image because we know at that point who, what we're looking at. And so we can conjure the image. And so for here, I think, make it a thought about how love fights its death. You open your sky, never knowing how long it will last. It's just unclear. I'm not sure. It feels like we have an actual sword fighting situation down here. And this beginning feels like a metaphor, but I'm still not sure what. And this whole thing looks like a snowman. So I don't know. Maybe I should not have so many circles. But this I don't know. I think it's incomplete because this beginning is unclear. Because I think this and it feels like, to me, a metaphor for some kind of relationship, of course, because we talk about love fighting its death, and the death of love is two things. I don't know. What are your thoughts about this poem? Because I love the ending. I think the ending is very clear, and is a beautiful thing to end on. It's just resolving the beginning that's I'm having trouble with. So let's see what. So Andrea Dobrica says, switch it on its head and tell the story backwards. And again, looking to that Marie Howe, I can't even take the advice I gave a couple minutes ago of thinking about moving the beginning up. But what if it was the battle? Let's just read it that way. The battle. Both fall to the ground, waiting to be lifted like a sacred feather. Make it a thought about how love fights its death. You open your sky, never knowing how long it will last. Your armor gets stripped away, all but the sword you swallow. Dang, that is much better. Yeah. So just move that up there, if I can draw an arrow. Move that up there, and I think that works really well. Yeah. Because then you know what's going on, and you can, and once you if you create the image in your head first, then you're sort of hunting for the meaning and finding what it is, and then it all kind of resolves clearly. So I think just flipping it around, excellent suggestion. Yeah. And that is funny because that was the point I did want to bring up about Marie Howe, and I didn't even think of it. So I got to start training myself to think that way. But thanks, Andrea. That was a great suggestion. Let's see. Okay, I think that we did a good job on that one. So let's move on to the next poem, so we can move along quickly. But thanks for sharing that, Sharon. I always love your short poem style. They're always very good. And let's see who's next. Joe Barca's got one here. Before Dinosaurs. And Joe says, how can I take this poem to the next level? Let's switch this. And well, let's see. Let's try to take it to the next level. Before Dinosaurs. Okay, Before Dinosaurs. And this is Joe Barca again. The scientist didn't pick the horseshoe crab up by her black pencil tail. He gripped her by her helmet. Her ancestors were 450 million years old. She was the dinosaur's dinosaur. He was rousing a saint, lifting a limulus that moved like a Roomba. She made her protest known, claws waggling as if 1,000 dissidents, as if a rat raged to fight for the blue of her blood. The medical community envisioned a toxin detector. They found one. They tried to minimize the loss of horseshoe crabs while using their blood to test vaccines, IV drips, and implant devices, anything that went inside the body. I couldn't imagine a savior that predated Jesus. I swear when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was kneel in the dirt of the sea, touching their shells. And before she scuttled away, she looked at me with her 10 eyes, as if she could make wine out of water. I flipped her over, a dime in her legs, a host inside a chalice on an altar in the claws of a church. Oh, that's great. So to me, I don't know if everybody feels the same way. To me, I was really into the poem and loved at the beginning and end. I think maybe the title could be better. I think we could find a better title. So maybe think of a better title as we go through, everybody, because Before Dinosaurs doesn't really conjure. I mean, it adds a detail, but maybe... I think maybe it's too short and simple. I kind of like the concept of the title, but it's not very evocative. So what if we made the title a little longer and said something like, they were alive in the time before dinosaurs, or, I mean, you can make it a little better than that, but some kind of phrase to sort of be more evocative than just Before Dinosaurs. But then jumping into the poem, and if you have any suggestions for better titles, leave them in the comments for Joe to see. But I was really into the poem at the beginning. The scientist didn't pick the horseshoe crab up by her black pencil tail. I think the black pencil tail is a great, I don't know what I'm doing here, but it's a great line there. He gripped her by her helmet, and calling it a helmet is really cool too. So a really good start to this poem. Her ancestors were 450 million years old. She was the dinosaur's dinosaur. And I think that's a good concept too. It's good to get this out here. It's a good information drop here. Compare this to the information later, and you'll see what the issue is with the poem, I think. He was a rousing saint lifting a limulus. I assume that's a tool used for this purpose, like it was like a Roomba. And the Roomba is that electronic vacuum cleaner that just goes around the room, right? So I feel like this word, I think that sort of brings it in sort of the present and like in a space that just doesn't really fit the poem. So I would find a different word there. And yeah, so Dick yesterday was telling me that I should get a pencil thing. And I think that would work better than trying to write with a mouse. But the word choice here I think could be better. Word choice. Choice, there we go. So, so something that stays, because what happens is we go from this lab kind of setting, where like a biology lab of some kind, where they're harvesting for the blood of the horseshoe crab. It takes us from there to a sort of a domestic setting where a Roomba is running around. So I think a different metaphor there would work much better. I think a limulus is probably a tool. I'm sure somebody's explaining it to me in the notes right now, but I can't I can't find it yet. So I think that works. But we want to stick in the same scene. We don't want the metaphor to pull us into a different place. We want to stay there. And I can't imagine a Roomba walking riding around a science lab. So I think we need to change that. Yeah, and so Sarah Horn says what I'm about to get to, that the third stanza is a bit wordy perhaps. And yeah, that's the issue with the poem, I'd say. But let's keep going. She made her protest known, claws waggling as if 1,000 dissidents, as if a riot raged to fight for the blue of her blood. I think up to here, the first stanza is really strong. This is pretty good, but not as strong. So I think work on lifting this language up a little bit so it matches some of the more interesting things, the black pencil tail, the grip by her helmet, like calling it a little unusual. I think the claws wrangling as if 1,000 dissidents works, but the riot raged is a bit of a cliche. So I think I could step that up a little bit. Oh, okay. So Sarah Horn says Limulus is apparently a genus of horseshoe crab. Okay, lifting a Limulus. That moved like a Roomba. Oh, okay. So since we didn't know that, and I don't know if anybody would know that. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know if anybody would know. Just a casual reader without looking it up would know what lifting a limulus is. What that actually makes the image resolve better. Even though I would still say the same thing, we don't want to leave the lab with the metaphor. So I think maybe that's just going too obscure and saying the genus of the horseshoe crab. Maybe, because then I couldn't see that image, because I was imagining some kind of like hook tool thing that they might use as they're harvesting the blood. I've seen them, up on the wall, and they kind of have this like way that they do it with the tubes. I don't know. I thought it was something to do with that. So now that it's the horseshoe crab, it resolves better, and but still I wouldn't use the Roomba. So I don't know, something's wrong with there. I fixed that up. But then here we get to the thing where I think, and Sarah Horn pointed out already, maybe other people have too, this stanza right here feels like an information dump. It feels like we pulled out of the voice of the poet, and we're just passing along information like we're reading a poem, and then all of a sudden we log into Wikipedia. The medical community envisioned a toxin detector. They found one. So the medical community envisioned, like that's so many syllables, and it's not the voice. We didn't have that kind of technical, mode of speaking in the first two stanzas. And then we get this kind of clinical, technical, encyclopedia type talk, and it feels it doesn't fit with the poem. So, when we have the scene of the scientists, in the horseshoe crab working together here, we're in that scene. And this pulls us right out, even though it's interesting information to share. It's got to be told in a way that doesn't. So the trick is to somehow find a way to get this information without it feeling like we pulled up a paragraph from Wikipedia. They try to minimize the loss of horseshoe crabs while using their blood to test vaccines, IV drips, and implanted devices. See, that is just so wordy, and so that list is like, like a news article or something would say. Anything that went inside the body. Yeah. And so Nate says the third sentence could be better told if through metaphor and not so technical. Yeah. And that's so finding a way to get this out. Do we even need to get this? Can't we just, though, drop that information slowly as through, the scientist didn't pick the horseshoe crab up by her black pencil tail. He gripped her by the helmet. And then as an aside, as we move through those kind of details, say some of this, testing its blood on vaccines or whatever, like sort of filtering that information in without ever leaving the story might be a better way to do it. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, and so Kate Potter is asking if she wants to send a poem too. We might have time for a little bit more than what's already been sent in. So how to do that is just use the open mic email address, openmic@rattle.com. Email your poem there, openmic@rattle.com, and put like critique in or something. And then I'll know that it's for this purpose right now, and we can share it if we have time. Okay, so that is that's how to do it, Kate, and anybody else who joined late, because you should know if you joined late. Okay, anyway, so I would so find a way not to dump this. I don't even know if you need this. I don't think you need much of it. I'm thinking about a way you could like work in the important information as a title. I don't know. Do people know? Maybe it's just common enough knowledge that this is what horseshoe crabs are used for, that it's not even necessary to include this information. I wonder if it would work. Like if you had a better, I think the riots raged to fight for the blue of her blood. I think that could be done a little better. And what if we just cut this and then maybe like jump right into a Jesus metaphor? Instead of going for the blue blood, make that transition here, claws wriggling as if 1,000 descendants, find some way to get a Jesus reference and then say, I can't imagine a savior that predated Jesus. Maybe something like that. I'm not sure. There seems like there's something better that could be done here, and then we could just pivot around and not even have this section. Let's see. I couldn't imagine a savior that predated Jesus. I swear when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was kneel in the dirt of the sea. See, this is where it picks up again. The poetry comes back. So that's just great. All I wanted to do was kneel in the dirt of the sea. It's because it's, it could be just in the sea. All I want to do is kneel in the sea. But kneeling in the dirt of the sea it's a different phrase you don't hear very often. You don't think of dirt in the sea, but it's true. In that kind of environment where the horseshoe crab live, it's very muddy. You get those huge muddy boots, and yeah, so that's a very evocative and unusual phrase, and so that works really well. I like that a lot. Touching their shells, and before she scuttled away, she looked at me with her 10 eyes. Again, she didn't just look at me, but with her 10 eyes, so we get a great visual there too, as if she could make wine out of water, and so we get that Jesus reference again. I flipped her over. A dime in her legs, a host inside a chalice on an altar, and the claws of the church. And then here we have the claws, which we talked about here too. And I think unless you're talking about them in a really different way, I think maybe that works actually. Yeah. So, anyway. Yeah, so what I would do with this poem is just get that middle section to not be like an information dump, because that just takes you out of the poem and it doesn't live up to the rest. Yeah. Nate Jacob says, love this weaving of a poem. Great work, Joe. Mary Class loves the dirt of the sea, too. Nate Jacob suggests ending on wine out of water. Yeah, you know what? That's a great idea. Good suggestion, Nate, because it kind of repeats. Like you get the Jesus again right there, and then you just kind of repeat the same kind of concept instead of letting us hover on that one image. And I think you're right. I think Nate Jacobs right. I would just cut this off too. So what if you just cut this and cut this? Do we need the rest? Maybe we need a transition. But let's read it without the stuff we don't like and see how that feels. And maybe it's a different title. Someone suggested... looking for... I saw a couple of suggestions for the... Yeah, and so I think we leave out the Roomba line too. So let's cut that line as well. So Sharon Front suggests he was rousing a saint, which is very interesting. He was rousing a saint. I'm not sure what we should do with the title, but let's read the poem though. Let's call it. Someone else had a title. Katie Dozier says the Dinosaurs dinosaur. Let's read it like that. The Dinosaurs dinosaur. The scientists didn't pick up the horseshoe crab. Oh, sorry. Let me start over. The Dinosaurs dinosaur. The scientist didn't pick the horseshoe crab up by her black pencil tail. He gripped her by her helmet. Her ancestors were 450 million years old. She was the dinosaur's dinosaur. He was rousing a saint. She made her protest known, claws waggling as if 1,000 dissidents, as if a riot raged to fight for the blue of her blood. I'd still cut that. I couldn't imagine a savior that predated Jesus. I swear when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was kneel in the dirt of the sea, touching their shells. And before she scuttled away, she looked at me with her 10 eyes, as if she could make wine out of water. Yeah, see, that's so much better. There's just a bunch of stuff that we don't need. And so I think maybe claws wrangling is of 1,000 dissidents. What if it was like, I think it's your ear that's telling you to do the as if again. If there's this repetition that you kind of want to do an as if. What if the line was like, she made her protest known, claws waggling as if 1,000 dissidents, as if, and then we do our little info dump, as if an animal could be a toxin detector. Say it better than that, but something like that. As if an animal could save, could be a savior. Somehow to get this detail that just it's being used for the medical community, but say it in a non-clunky way. As if something like this, as if a limulus could do something. And then we jump into that. I couldn't imagine a savior that predated Jesus. Or, she made her protest known, claws waggling, as if 1,000 dissidents, as if blue blood were worth it. Or I don't know how exactly to phrase it, but some kind of thing where we get that little bit of medical info that it's being harvested for medicine right in there with an as if. And then we move on to the I couldn't imagine a savior that predated Jesus. And then we get the whole rest, which is a beautiful little poem. So I think that's what I'd do with it, Joe. But good stuff. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Nate Jacobs suggests the title could reference something about blood of Christ imagery and then play the crab's blood work into savory imagery. Yeah, that's a good idea, too. Yeah, the blood of Christ. What if it was like the blue blood of Christ or something like that? I don't know. But those are the areas to play with, and you kind of got to just figure out what's working and what's not. Dick Westover says Chanel number 5 is derived from horseshoe crab blood. I didn't know that. I thought it was used for... I don't even know what I thought it was used for. I knew it was used for something medical. Interesting. So maybe that's a fact we could get in there too. I mean, maybe it's not a... I don't know. But I do love, the savior aspect. I'm curious. I am curious. I'm going to have to look this up after the show about why it's used, how it's used to test vaccines and IV drips. I wonder what it's used for specifically. But anyway, that would be my suggestion for the poem. And I think it's a great poem. Good work, Joe. Just that middle section is what needs work, and just cutting the stuff that doesn't work so well. Okay, next up, we will go to, and now we have a ton, so it's tough. We're going to be tough to get through everybody. But here is Clayton Clark's. And I think this is good, because I think last time we didn't get to Clayton, maybe. So here's Clayton Clark's poem. This is The Jarring Bloom. And let me switch it over really quickly. The Jarring Bloom. All right. And we got Clayton Clark. And close out of that. Okay, here we go. The Jarring Bloom. It started like this love, and then cleaning his house for money. I didn't see the comma. It started like this, love, and then cleaning his house for money. She remembers the road, but not the turn that changed her. Was that evolution? She watches him in the mirror, Windex dripping, making him clean and squeak. He watches a soap opera on TV. 2 actors in love hang from the precipice of a cliff. Beyond and above his crossed sock feet on the coffee table, an X he has to look over. He tells her she missed a spot. She laughs, knows it was her lot. The life she had dreamed on the way up the stairs, into his lily pad bed, thinking he had the answer to that one question. Love is. The saddish poem, The Jarring Bloom. And so for this one, I liked the beginning, and then I kind of lost a little bit in the description. The Jarring Bloom. It started like this, love, and then cleaning his house for money. And really that almost is a whole poem right there. It's a really interesting opening. Like, that was very evocative. That made me really curious about what's going on. It started like this, love, and then cleaning his house for money. She remembers the road, but not the turn that changed her. And this is a great line, too. She remembers the road, but not the turn that changed her. Was that evolution? She watches him in the mirror, Windex dripping, making him clean and squeak. So we get the image there, he watches a soap opera on TV, and then that's right here. I think I'm not very interested in the two actors in love, hanging from a precipice of a cliff. So I think this is maybe where it just, either here she watches him in the mirror. I think right here, maybe the poem took a turn where it didn't end up going in the way it wanted to go. Windex dripping, making him clean and squeak. He watches a soap opera on TV, two actors in love, hanging from the precipice of a cliff. Beyond and above, his cross-socked feet on the coffee table, an X he has to look over. So notice how much engaging, interesting stuff happened in these first two stanzas plus that line. So the first 7 lines. It started like this, love. So it started and it's love, and then cleaning his house for money. So that huge transition. That's like what a cut, what a shocking difference that is there. And then she remembers the road, but not the turn that changed her. What a great turn of phrase that is. And was that evolution, like gradual change that you end up in this place. So just so much is there. And then we get these next 3 stanzas are just him watching a soap opera on TV, and a kind of cliche scene in a soap opera. It doesn't really add a whole lot. I know like love, two lovers are hanging there, and it's like some kind of metaphor, but it's not anything that's really engaging. And the feet on the coffee table and that, it's sort of a repetition of, him in the mirror, dripping and stuff. It doesn't really add a whole lot. He tells her she missed a spot, which is, a very rude comment, of course, as someone's just sitting there watching someone work. But she laughs, knows it was her lot. There is a nice rhyme. I like the lot and spot, but don't get married to your darlings. I think that, I think the poem made a wrong turn. It needs to go somewhere different, maybe, or be much shorter. She laughs, knows it was her lot. The life she had dreamed on the way up the stairs into his lily pad bed. The lily pad bed doesn't feel like it fits right either, because I don't know what that's a reference to. A lily pad bed. Thinking he had the answer to that one question, love is, and the ending kind of falls flat. So to me, it feels like the poem was working really well, and you were sort of in that poetic space, and then it kind of like got caught up here, like a clog in the system, and needs to sort of find a different, find some kind of door to go in, some different space. The poem needs to turn right there. And it didn't, and so that's why it sort of ends up flat. But the beginning is great, and it really makes me want to know more about these characters and what happened and how it came to be. And the writing is so tight right there that I just want more of that. And so it left me kind of hanging in a weak way, no pun intended, given the cliff scene. But yeah, Dick Westover said the image in the mirror confused me, and that did confuse me on the first read. She watches him in the mirror, Windex dripping, making him clean. So she's like, cleaning a mirror, and he's like behind her on the couch watching a soap opera. And so he's, she's making him seem like he squeaks as the Windex squeaks. And so that's the image, but it took a little while for me to see it too. But I think that whole section, I think it's just a wrong turn, or maybe we just want to end the poem there. She watches him in the mirror. I'm not sure. It feels like it wants to do something more. Cindy Putnam Gunther ended after the 6th stanza. Where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He tells her she missed a spot. She laughs, knows it was her lot, the life she had dreamed. Yeah, the ending, if we do want to go this way, definitely I would cut this. This doesn't really add a whole lot, and it feels pretty weak. It could end here at this, like Cindy says, and maybe condense this, like take out the soap opera. What if it was just, let's read it this way. What if it was, condensing the soap opera. So we're going to cut, Yeah, what if we just cut all this? Okay, so this is how I'm going to read it. Ready? The jarring bloom. It started like this, love, and then cleaning his house for money. She remembers the road, but not the turn that changed her. Was that evolution? She watches him in the mirror, Windex dripping, making him clean and squeak. He watches a soap opera on TV. He tells her she missed a spot. She laughs, knowing it was her lot, the life she had dreamed. So I think the poem works much better that way. If we just cut that much, cut all of, cut to here, and all the way, cut that and cut that, the poem works a lot better. But I do think it wants to turn. I think it wants to go somewhere else. I think it lost the really great thread it had going, in the first stanza. Yeah. Katie Dozer says, I'd cut the fourth stanza. I really like the X because it alludes to Xing him out. That's a good point. I just think the rest of the poem doesn't live up to the first two stanzas. And Sharon says too, yeah, I love those first two stanzas. And so Jenny Middleton says, I think the soap opera reference is about trying to explore the attempt to dramatize domestic situations. Yeah. So, and Meryl Class says that it needs condensing for sure. I would go, condensing kind of works, so you have a pretty good poem, but I feel like there's a great poem like waiting in here to come out, which tells more of this story, and maybe with a shift to something else, like a shift to a different scene. Like maybe what we want to do is have this be like bookends on something else where we go, it started like this, and then, the Windex, blah, blah, blah. Then we go to like the wedding night, or like the first day they met, or like something else, like some other story, maybe something completely related. Maybe the way that frogs fall in love. Some kind of go somewhere different and then come back to it after we go somewhere different. And I think that'll make it like a great poem instead of just a pretty good poem. Yeah. Okay, let's look at the next one, because I think that's good for that. It's past an hour. Hope if you have to leave, don't feel bad. That's always on. You can always watch the rest on the archive. It'll still be up there. If you go to rattle.com, it'll just be on the bottom for the next until Monday. You can always find it on our YouTube channel. Just type the live. Now they split up the uploaded videos and live videos, but just click on the live tab and you'll find this live critique of the week, or on Facebook it'll be up. So if you have to go, don't worry about it. I know it's past 10 o'clock, but we'll keep going for a while because there's a lot of poems here, and I like doing this. Next up is Jenny Middleton. And let's just erase all this. Oops, that doesn't work. Erase. Can I erase? I'll start fresh. Okay. Then this is Jenny Middleton's poem, Cracking the Cube. And I try to move a little faster so we can get to more. Because I have been another like 20 minutes or so. Then I got to get going. Taking the kids on a hike. Let's see. So we'll switch this to this. And here's Cracking the Cube. This is Jenny Middleton. Can you crack the cube? Books, teachers, parents asked, encouragingly, sarcastically, gently, pushing the Rubik's Cube craze like some mathematician's drug. But still I thought more of jelly shoes and whether they were made partly at least of jelly cubes. The type eaten at parties and tuned in to trifles, pulled from the elastic of their gelatinous blocks, and dissolved from their geometry in boiling water, growing paler and smoother with each stir or pushed, the way my diabetic uncle pops them with urgent desire into his hot-mouthed cavern, chewing sugar into his blood. And I thought when I was 8 about sweetness, about needing something beyond yourself, and about how hard easy it is to keep twisting life right. So that's interesting. Cracking the Cube. The poem really picked up for me in the second half. Cracking the Cube. Can you crack the cube? Books, teachers, parents asked, encouragingly, sarcastically, gently. So this, listen to the way the voice sounds toward the end and how it sort of ends up feeling like this natural music that's like being pushed out. Whereas here with the breaks, and just even if it wasn't the for the slashes, it still feels a little stilted and it hasn't found its voice yet. You can't feel like the speaker of the poem is speaking to you. So Can You Crack the Cube is like someone's voice, someone like a commercial almost. So right here, how do I do this? Okay. So books, teachers, parents asked, encouragingly, sarcastically, gently, pushing the Rubik's Cube craze like some mathematician's drug. I think that kind of works, but the poem went in a different way. but it didn't sort of stick with this concept. It went off, which is great. It went off in its own direction. Like it needed that, like a ramp. But I think it's so little about Rubik's Cube. So what if we called it, what if we just, in cracking the cube, it repeats this line too. Cracking the cube, and then the same concept. Can you crack the cube? What if we called it the Rubik's Cube and made that the title? So put that up as the title. And then we get the Rubik's Cube craze. And then can you crack the cube? Was pushed. You could kind of like, because this part is it's just clunky and that doesn't work. So what if it was like, can you crack the cube? Was pushed like some mathematician's drug, but still I thought more of jelly shoes. Like what if we just jumped right there, just had 2 lines, and then we get right into the actual content that we're talking about? Because that's when the poem takes off. Like you can feel it. It's like feeling a plane on a runway. You're kind of like shaking, like, where are we going? And then all of a sudden it sort of soars. And so you want to get to that, get rid of much of the runway as possible. But interestingly, to call back to the Rubik's Cube, so you can call it the Rubik's Cube as a title, but then shrink that that runway so it feels like you're just flying the whole time. But still, I thought more of jelly shoes and whether they were maybe made partly at least of jelly cubes. And so I think, notice how we have the hard easy. It feels like this was inserted to kind of make sense with what we did up here, but it's clunky too. So I think if we cut the slash, and condense that a little bit too, but still I thought more of jelly shoes and whether they maybe were partly at least made of jelly, that kind of thing. Like not quite as long a list, but you could still do that and stay in the voice. The type eaten at parties and turned into trifles, pulled from the elastic of their gelatinous blocks and dissolved from their geometry in boiling water. Like see how fun that is to read compared to the first stanza. Pulled from the elastic of their gelatinous blocks and dissolved from their geometry in boiling water. Dissolved from their geometry in boiling water. That is just a cool phrase. Growing paler and smoother with each stir, and how visual that is. So you can see like the unconscious, which is so image driven and so holistic and so like associative, like just starts running with this and making really cool images, and this whole scene in your head builds out of that. And pushed the way my diabetic uncle pops them with urgent desire into his hot-mouthed cavern. Another great phrase, hot-mouthed cavern, chewing sugar into his blood. And those are just great descriptions there. And I thought, when I was 8, about sweetness, about needing something beyond yourself, and about how hard/easy it is to keep twisting life right. And then here, I think I like it up to this point, and then this kind of gets a little. Oops, I'm on the wrong thing. And this gets a little summary-ish, right here, and how hard, easy it is to keep twisting life right. I think it hasn't found the ending yet. So it's an interesting poem. It's sort of like, we have a shaky takeoff and then flying amazingly, and then a kind of clunky landing, and I just work on trying to find a better way to resolve this. It's great. I thought when I was 8 about sweetness, about needing something beyond yourself, and blah 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 blah. I feel like there's a lot more right there that can be pushed forward at that point. So I would keep that poem going, I think. Let's see what everyone's saying about this. Sharon Fronte says I'd start a mathematician's drug. So what if we call it a Rubik's Cube? The Rubik's Cube craze, a mathematician's drug, but still I thought more of jellies. Yeah, you could just do that. Yeah, let's just do that. Thanks, Sharon. Cut that too, and just start with like some mathematician's drug. Yeah, call it the Rubik's Cube craze, like some mathematician's drug, but still I thought more of jelly shoes. And so the poem is not even about what you thought it was going to be about. And maybe, like, why did the Rubik's Cube trigger this thought and go to this sweetness? I think that's the question the poem is wanting to answer. Like, how does the Rubik's Cube tie into, needing something beyond yourself? And maybe that's where the ending needs to go. Maybe not referencing the cube again necessarily, but yeah. I don't know. I think it could. something beyond yourself. What if it was like, and I thought when I was 8 about sweetness, about needing something beyond yourself, twisting into the shape that my parents made me, that kind of thing. I mean, not that, but something like that. Maybe could be the end of the poem. Let's see. Any other suggestions here? Okay, so let's move on to another poem. And next up we have Patricia June Austin. And this is, I think we have 2 short poems here. And they're very short, so let's just look at both of them. New blank document. And we'll just take a look at both of these. Okay, so here we have the first, Butterfly of Joy. Butterfly of Joy lands on the cosmos flower for just a moment, spreading her wings. That's a very nice little poem, the Butterfly of Joy. So we get a very, we know what the metaphor is right in the title. But then we get lands on the cosmos flower. I assume that's a real flower, but it's sort of spreads out to everything in the universe, So joy comes to the universe sometimes, but for just a moment, spreads her wings. And there's a really nice cut. So I like this poem a lot. I'm not sure if there's anything I'd change about this one. Lands on the cosmos flower for just a moment, spreading her wings. And you, the wings of joy. I think it's a very nice little poem. I don't know much to say about that. Anybody have any suggestions for this one? Let's see. Any other comments? Yeah, Cosmos is a great fit. Yeah, Katie Dozier says Cosmos flowers are wonderful to pick for poems. It's a lovely light poem. Yeah, I'm not sure I have any suggestions. I think it's just nice. I think it's a nice little poem. The question, if we got a poem like this in the submission, is like, does it do enough to justify its page in the issue and $200 and the poem that it'd be replacing? And I'm not sure. One suggestion Danny Gagnon says is on the is to call it the butterfly and instead of wings of joy. The butterfly, let's try it that way and see how it sounds. The butterfly lands on the cosmos flower for just a moment, spreading her wings of joy. Now, see, I don't like that because you have this, there's almost like the haiku cut thing going on here, where it's not actually a metaphor. And the only thing that makes it a metaphor for joy is the title. So you get this kind of split where the poem is saying 2 things at once. It's literally just a butterfly landing on the cosmos flower. So it's just the image. And then because of the title, it's making you, giving you some sort of meaning to take away from that. And I think, and I think and then the poem stays in that literal. So I like that idea of, sort of overlapping worlds going on like it does in a haiku. And I think that works. It's a haiku-ish poem. I think it works really well. Like I said, the only question is, does it do enough, I would say, to, it depends. For Rattle, there's so many poems to pick from. And, we have some short poems sometimes, but a 4-line poem by itself, like if we do a haiku, it's nice to have like 10 or 8 or something. And standing alone isn't enough, but in a grouping it might be. Let's look at the other poem, The Mosquito of Worry. And so it's kind of a parallel. We're going from the butterfly of joy to the mosquito of worry. Buzzes near the ear. Should I? Will I? Could I? Still I? What if I can't? What if I don't? So many fears I can't slap away. I think that works pretty well too. They're both nice little short poems. That's interesting too. So for the first poem, I think, who was it that suggested this? Oh, so Katie Dozier says, I'd cut butterfly and just call it joy. So what if this title was just, what if we did that to both poems? Because it becomes clear it's a butterfly anyway without having to say it directly. And then Katie says the same for the mosquito. So let's read them both. So what if it's just joy? Joy lands on the cosmos flower just for a moment, spreading her wings. I think that's very nice. And then what if the other one was just worry? Worry buzzes near the ear. Should I? Will I? Could I? Still I? What if I can't? What if I don't? So many fears I can't slap away. And again, it's a very haiku-ish. We have kind of a cut. Oops, I'm the wrong one. We have a kind of cut right here too, as if this was like the first half of a haiku and this is a second. And I like that too. So I would just go joy and worry. I think that's a good suggestion. And the way the poems have to go together because they relate to each other a lot. One thing I was thinking, I'm not sure if this. What if I just worry buzzes near my ear? Should I? Will I? Could I? Still I? I think maybe the what if I don't is too much. It just felt like what if I can't, what if I don't was a little too much. So what if we cut one of them? What if we just cut it down this? Worry buzzes near the ear. Should I, will I, could I, still I? What if I can't? So many fears I can't slap away. Oh, then we get this can't twice. Maybe cut this one and keep the don't. So like this. Worry buzzes near the ear. Should I, will I, could I, still I? What if I don't? So many fears I can't slap away. Sharon Ferrante says, what if we flip the order and turn it into one poem? What if we say, worry buzzes near the ear. Should I, will I, could I, still I? What if I don't? So many fears I can't slip away. Joy lands on the cosmos flower for just a moment, spreading her wings. I think the voice is so different that I wouldn't do that. I think I'd keep them two separate poems. Just because there's this sort of anxiety in the one poem that's so different in the voice. And well done, because we repeat those questions. And they're such short questions, so you kind of have to have an anxious way of reading that. And it's so different than the voice of the other one that would be jarring to be in the same poem. I think having them two separate poems that just work in parallel and maybe get paid twice the money would work really well. So I do those little edits. I think those are good suggestions. Sharon Ferrante suggests just a haiku. Mosquito worry, the fear I can't slap away. That's good. Andrea Dobrica says, I think they could all be a haiku sequence, emotions as insects. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to another poem. Next up, we have Katie Dozier. This is Bountiful. Oh, and I have maybe 10 minutes. I'm maybe going to do two more, okay? Then I do have to get going. This is Bountiful. And we'll switch to it. Okay. We'll get rid of these extra windows that I don't need. Okay, here's Bountiful. Bountiful. The birds are flitting between two holly trees, buntings, cardinals, and even a blue jay. Every beak holds an invite on the coldest day of the year, when they've honed in on little berries bulking up branches, a feast for all the winged advances, and I'm ashamed that these birds, their bouncing colors, their energy of winged bunnies, reminds me of the time my daughter said we should go to both McDonald's for a Happy Meal and Wendy's for a Frosty. This is what it is to live a modern life, looking in all directions until we lose what is past, what is present, what is future, how the past floats up beside me without even wearing a watch, and the present sits eyeing me from a park bench, a monocle emoji questioning my every step, and the future is the only female, a brown peacock, and by the moment you wonder if that means she can fly, the future has already hummed up beside us, dropped another hourglass, a red berry knocked off a holly tree, uneaten, amounting to a red blip in the grass that starts to sink into the dirt, teetering, but decides to roll on by the park bench, present, waving with a knotted stem from down the path. That's very interesting rumination, Bountiful. To me, as I was reading it, I was really into it, and then toward the end, I felt it got a little too long. That was my overall impression. bountiful. The birds are flitting between two holly trees, buntings, cardinals, and even a blue jay. Every beak holds an invite on the coldest day of the year. And it's interesting, there's, with the, the emoji reference and the Wendy's and the Frosties and things like that, it's very set in the contemporary, which is interesting. And this is the first, say an invite is the first thing that does that. So it all feels uniform, and consistent in that way. When they've honed in on little berries bulking up branches, a feast for all winged advances, and I'm ashamed. So we get the branches advances near rhyme. Is it the only, I think that's the strongest sort of internal rhyme there in the poem. And it's very strong to my ear. I wonder if it's too much. It kind of distracted for me. I think it probably doesn't fit the music of the poem, I think. It felt a little off. And I'm ashamed that these birds are bouncing colors. Because this poem moves in more of a, the sort of the musical structure of it has a lot more to do with the consonant sounds in that repetition. It's almost like if you read old Middle English poetry, they had, instead of rhyming, it was, Beowulf and stuff had the consonants, and you had three. Each section had three of the same sort of consonant sounds, each line. It has that kind of feel to it. The winged bunnies reminds me of the time my daughter said we should go to both McDonald's for a Happy Meal and Wendy's for a Frosty. This is what it is to live a modern life, looking in all directions until we lose what is past, what is present, what is future, how the past floats up beside me without even wearing a watch. It's a very good image there. I like that. And the present sits eyeing me from a park bench. So we get this whole scene playing out, and we're already at a park, so it fits. Notice how in Joe Barker's poem, we went to the Roomba. Remember that? And it didn't feel like it fit because we had a metaphor, and then it wasn't in the same place. So we sort of had to leave the space of the poem to get there. This one, it has, we stay at the park. So it sort of feels like we're in a park the whole time. So it feels like it fits, even though we're sort of building on the scene with these characters of the past and the present. So that works. And the present sits eyeing me from a park bench, a monocle emoji, and we get that like modern pop sort of feel in the poem too. A monocle emoji questioning my every step. The future is the only female, a brown peacock, and by the moment you wonder if that means she can fly. The by the moment phrase, by the moment, that seems a little not right for some reason. It's a weird way to say that. By the moment. You wonder if that means she can fly. The future is already hummed up beside us. Really great use of the verb. Verb hummed up is interesting. Dropped another hourglass. A red berry knocked off a holly tree. Now right here, I wonder if the poem could just end here maybe. It felt like the poem went on too long, and I got a little bit, it lost me a little bit. I think maybe ending there. Uneaten amount to a red blip in the grass that starts to sink into the dirt, teetering but decides to roll on by the park bench, present waving with a knotted stem from down the path. I mean, maybe it could go a little longer. A red berry knocked off a holly tree. Or maybe even uneaten, and end there. Or a red blip in the grass. But it feels like this section goes on too long and doesn't add enough. And it kind of, what wanted to be said is already said. And so it needs an earlier ending, I would say. Let's see. Yeah, so Jenny Middleton says I like the way the poem shifts from philosophical exploration of time to references of McDonald's, added realism to the poem. Cindy, where's Cindy? So many good images, but it needs shortening or maybe broken into verses. So a little too dense. Nate Jacob, love it. Katie Dozier, love the treatment of past, present, and future. Future's a brown peacock, awesome. Okay, alliteration. Yeah, that's the word. Thanks, Joe. Yeah. So Dick Westheimer says, I might leave out the phrase, what is past, what is. We get that in the next section of the poem. Where was that? Yeah, do we lose? Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion too. That's something I missed, but I agree. What it is to live a modern life, looking in all directions. Yeah, do we need that? Yeah. What if we just cut? Oops, I'm on the wrong side again. What if we cut? Where'd it go? Modern life, looking in all directions until we lose. Yeah, look in all directions. Yeah, what if we just did that, and then end the poem here? I'd say, and cut this, and then So the poem runs along as normal. Then this is what it is to live a modern life, looking in all directions. How the past floats up beside me without even wearing a watch. And the present sits eyeing me from a park bench, a monocle emoji questioning my every step. And the future is the only female, a brown peacock. And you wonder if that means she can fly. Yeah, just cut that. I don't know why that needs that. And you wonder if that means she can fly. The future already hummed up beside us, dropped another hourglass, a red berry knocked off a holly tree uneaten. And just end there. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's just a sort of matter of trimming some stuff down. So good stuff there. I think that's probably enough of that poem. Let's do one more. Okay. Oh, and Bountiful, the title Bountiful. I think that's a good title, too. As far as one-word title goes, I think that's a pretty good one. Let's do another. So now there are... Yeah, I'm sorry. So we got Kate Potter. We got Elizabeth McCarthy. We got Danny. We got Mary Lisa. We got too many people, and I got to go. Maybe we'll do... You know what? I think... Yeah, so this will do. It's already 10:30. I got to go. I promised my kids we'd go for a hike. We'll do these. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6. If you tune in next week and you say hi and you're here to Kate, Mary Lisa, Danny, Kate, Elizabeth, and Nate, we'll do that in the second half of the show tomorrow. And you just pick one poet, not tomorrow. I mean next Friday, and we'll just pick one poet to do as the main one, and maybe we can get a couple more in as well for like another lightning round next week. That's what we'll do. So thanks everybody for doing this. It's so fun that I just want to do it all day, but I can't because I have other obligations and responsibilities and joys. So that is going to be the critique of the week for this week. Thanks everybody for sharing your poems. Let's see, next week on the Rattlecast, after your holiday, whatever holiday you happen to celebrate, the guest is going to be John Brehm. John Brehm's newest book is No Day at the Beach. We published him a bunch of times. He's been a Rattle Poetry Prize finalist. One of the most read poems on Rattle is his poem about the IRS, Dear IRS, about owing back taxes on a poem because you didn't, you forgot to write down that you made $50 or something like that. And a really funny and great sort of Ars Poetica poem about the meaning of poetry. That was it's one of my favorite poems we published, actually, so I always think about it and share it on tax day. But that's John Brehm and No Day at the Beach, his next book. And then the prompt for this week was trying to remember. Oh, it was a list poem. That's right. So if you watched the Rattlecast last week, episode 173, Deanna O'Reilly talked about how she makes poems using lists. So find a poem or a chapter of something you're reading. Just write down a list of all the words that are very interesting to you, that sort of stand out as something worth remembering. Make a list of those 10 words, and then write a poem generated by using that list of 10 words. So let your imagination move through them, use as many as you can or as few as you need to keep the poem going. But every time you sort of come to a stop, try to find a way to work another word into that from the list into the poem. Keep the poem going that way. That's one of the styles Deanna O'Reilly really liked to use to write. So why don't we try that? That's going to be the prompt for Monday. And all that's going to be Rattlecast number 174. The regular time, Monday, December 26th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see you then. Hope you have a great weekend and holiday in the meantime, and I will talk to you later. Goodbye.